Before you enter these halls, heed warning. Tonight's chilling tales are not for the faint of heart. All who enter must be prepared to explore stories of darkness, mystery, the macabre, and all of the darkest parts of humanity. If tales of true crime, the paranormal, or other creatures that go bump in the night unsettle you, turn back now. For those of you brave souls who stayed, welcome to Dark Academy. I'm Kristen, and I'll be your guide through this chilling night. Grab your candle and follow me to the haunted library of horror. Here we are, happy to say the electricity... well, crap. Oh well, to the fireplace. Keep those candles lit. Welcome back, everyone. I think I see some new faces. Welcome. This is our Midnight Library Circle where we meet to discuss all things horror. Before we get started, I have a sad announcement. Becca is in fact leaving us. I am very sad about it, but she's just too involved in her very important work to help shape the minds of the next generation, and we can't fault her for that. Thank God for people like her, because most of us can't do it. I personally hope she'll at least be able to pop in every now and then to say hello and guest host here and there. But for now, she must fly free. You will be missed, Becca. Love you. I haven't decided what I'll do about the regular episodes yet. I'm not quite ready to give up on that, because I do like going into a good deep dive. I don't know if I'll do them alone or have others fill in when they can. I'll let you know as soon as I know. For now, we'll continue with the Midnight Library. Currently, we're discussing a movie and how there are real-world stories related to the movie in some way. I'm having fun with this. I hope you are too. This episode, we're going to talk about The Ritual. The beginning of this movie starts with 5 guys: Luke, Rob, Hutch, Dom, and Phil, meeting up in a pub to discuss a future trip. When they leave, Luke wants to go get alcohol, so Rob goes with him. The store is actively being robbed. Luke hides and Rob gets killed. There was a moment when Luke could have helped his friend, but instead, he laid there like a big chicken. We learn a bit from these first scenes. Luke is a man-child and coward. That was the biggest one for me. I was like, I just know this jerk is going to be the last one standing. I don't even care about his future growth in the rest of the movie. The rest of the guys are settled into their adult lives. Rob was just tired of the hustle and bustle and just wanted to go hiking. Since he died, this was the trip they chose, to honor him. While on this trip, they make multiple questionable decisions, but this would be a genre other than horror without idiotic decisions. I think us horror lovers must like yelling at screens. Bad decisions early on were: number 1. Dom does not wear it in his shoes beforehand, twists his ankle, and is a burden for the rest of the trip. Bad decision number 2. Taking a trail that requires a map and compass. Y'all don't look that advanced. Stick to marked trails. Questionable decision number 3. Leaving and packing up while it's raining, only to later seek shelter in similar conditions. You can pack up a tent in the rain but not put one up? Number 4. Running off whatever trail is in these unknown woods to run into an abandoned cabin, filled with runic pagan symbols, bones, and a weird wood and hay worship statue. This is when things get weird. Y'all are about to brush off everyone having crazy dreams that end in bizarre circumstances? I mean, Luke ends up outside with what looks like gunshot wounds. Hutch wets himself. Dom is freaking out in a corner, and Phil is upstairs sleep worshipping the effigy. It's time to abandon this shortcut and head back the way you came. You know what you're getting into at least. This is obviously a real-life trail of horrors. Let's not. But no. They continue on their way. They refuse to discuss it because Hutch doesn't want to talk about peeing his pants. Get over yourself. This is our lives we're talking about here. They walk around the woods some more. Get stalked by some giant creature. You can't fully see it, but the size alone is terrifying. Hutch gets taken and killed by the monster. He's hung up in the trees. They make more dumb decisions. Phil gets taken and killed. Hung up in the trees. They make more bad decisions, running right through a lighted path to another cabin that is obviously the same building company as the last one. but this one also uses large dead animals on sticks as landscaping. Yes, let's run right into that cabin. Run to your death. Guess what? They get captured by a pagan cult, tied up in a room. This is where they find out they will be sacrificed to an old god creature that is the bastard son of the Viking god Loki. The cult worships it and makes human sacrifices in order to live forever. The girl who tells the story also says pain-free, but there's an old lady who walks like it's at least slightly painful. They took Dom away to prepare him for his sacrifice, but he came back more beat up than before. How is that being prepared? They then put him on a spike and the creature kills him. I don't know why they even bothered bringing him back to the room. Maybe it wasn't nighttime yet, I don't know. Anyway, this is when Luke gets free by breaking his thumb. Not before. He sure does care about saving himself, but not too much about others. The guys made dumb decisions before this, but the movie was okay until this point. It got a little chaotic in the end for me. Some parts felt rushed that could have been better if more time was spent, while other parts were too slow that seemed less important. The biggest thing that should have been explored more was the cult. There was a lot of potential there. Like, how they all got there. What exactly are the things in the attic? I now know they're old cult members who are living an obviously wonderful eternal life rotting in the attic, but I still want to know more. Also, why the thing wanted Luke to worship him so badly? Was it because he was a selfish jerk? Someone who would eventually be cool with sacrificing other people? That sounds on brand to me. Anyway, guess we'll never find out. I'm fine with the ending, like the final ending, because it makes sense creatures have boundaries. It would be why people only experience them in different locations. I do know that there's a book about it that probably explains a little more. I did read a little bit of the plot, and it sounds like it actually would be better than the movie, but what's new? So anyway, my review of this is loosely recommend. I didn't hate it, and I wasn't bored, so it was okay. The concept is terrifying, though, in real life. The possibility of being offered as a sacrifice so that others can prosper. There are very few recorded instances in modern times of this happening, but it definitely did in ancient times, though the frequency is often debated. Oftentimes, people who were captured in war were sacrificed, or someone was chosen. It was considered an honor. There were mostly two types of human sacrifice at the time: an offering to a god, or slaughtering of servants or slaves to accompany the deceased to the afterlife. The most obvious is Egypt, because we learn about that all the time growing up. And what do we know about pharaohs? They love to take their stuff with them to the afterlife. Even people, apparently. Those who were sacrificed with a king were promised eternal life first and foremost. I didn't realize that wasn't guaranteed, but that's just me mistakenly attaching my own religious understanding to someone else's. That's my bad. They were also promised a better, wealthier life. All I gotta say is it better be, since I'm gambling with my life. Asante people in modern-day Ghana did both the sacrificing to the gods and trying to take their people with them when they die. So when a king died, his servants, along with his court officials, wives, and relatives, would all die too. They could volunteer or wait to see if they had to give their life. I would wait. They could choose how they died and would have their own funeral. Criminals would die too, but they had no choice on how, and there was no funeral. Outside of creating ghost slaves, people would voluntarily offer themselves before war to guarantee victory. Dahomey people in the southern part of modern-day Benin were said to have sacrificed around 4,000 annually to deceased royal ancestors. But this was reported by the same people trying to justify slavery. They argued they were saving the slaves. Though it may have been an ill-intended exaggeration, they did sacrifice 500 prisoners in these rituals. Not a number to sneeze at exactly. Aztecs and Nahua in modern-day Mexico believed the sun needed human blood. Thousands of people would be sacrificed annually in the maize ritual, or corn ritual. Incans, part of modern-day Peru, Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Colombia, would have large-scale sacrifices when a new ruler rose to power. Children specifically around important events. It's so disturbing when you involve children, but apparently they didn't see it that way back in the day. Back in the way back day. In Maya, Slaves, criminals, bastards, orphans, and children were the main victims. Children were preferred. They would even purchase them for red beans. Usually the victim would be placed on an altar. His and her heart would be cut out, then the body would be thrown down the temple stairs. Other methods could include drowning, beating, mutilation, and arrow sacrifices. The victim would be painted blue and placed on a stake while dancers take turns piercing their heart. That is terrifying. Some sacrificed others to atone for their sin. In Mesopotamia and Anatolia, modern-day Iraq and Turkey, respectively, it is believed children were sacrificed, burnt for the parents' transgressions. Phoenicians in Carthage would sacrifice their own children. If they did not have a child of their own, they would purchase one from the poor. I don't mean to sound judgy because I know I did not live back in those times, but wow. So, a different kind of sacrifice, the Assyrians did a switcheroo. They believed an eclipse predicted the death of their king, so he would go into hiding, being replaced by a substitute who would play king for a while, showered with the same luxuries and benefits until they would poison him. Then the real king would come out of hiding and resume his place on the throne. Celts were known to sacrifice humans. In Ireland, even the king wasn't safe. In troubled times, it must be his fault, so he has to go. Kinda harsh. In Britain, it appears people with abnormalities like 6 fingers on one hand were sacrificed because they were touched by gods. How about don't touch me? The Celts of Iberia would gut their prisoners of war to seek prophecies, because the future is in your poop chute. They would also cut off victims' right hand as an offering to the gods. Many others have been accused of sacrificing humans, but there's no evidence to support it. Early Christians even. It's thought it was just a misunderstanding of the Eucharist rite, where the body and blood are consumed, or bread and wine, not the actual body and blood. The First Crusades brought anti-Semitic violence to Jews. After the brutal murder of a British boy, his uncle, who was a priest, blamed the Jews. They were accused of something called the blood libel, ritualistically killing Christian children during Passover each year. 100 years later, it reemerged with the murder of another boy, and again throughout time, all the way into the 20th century. Hitler used this as propaganda to demonize the Jews. There was never any proof the blood libel was real. The sacrifices that inspired the movie rituals were from the Vikings. Odin, the king of the Viking gods, demanded human sacrifice. It was reported by a German bishop that Vikings met every 9 years to sacrifice 99 humans and 99 horses, dogs, and hens or hawks. A German monk said they met every 9 years, and 9 of every type of male, human and animal, were offered to the gods. He reported dogs, horses, and humans were hung from the trees. I'm guessing this is where the movie got the people hanging on the trees. It is thought these men never actually saw this and fabricated the whole story, but who knows? Archaeologists do know people were sacrificed by Denmark Vikings, but not in this way. Modern human sacrifice isn't unheard of, but it is definitely more rare and different. The biggest difference is who was offered, where they were obtained, and who the ritual would benefit. In ancient times, someone was captured from war, or a person was designated or chosen. The whole village, people, or community would reap the benefits. In modern times, random, stolen people are taken. Only the person doing the ritual will prosper. Very self-serving. And I know a sacrifice is a sacrifice, but at least there was honor in dying for a cause in history. At least some had a choice. There's something else I've never understood. You have to value something for it to be worthy as an offering. Most modern people use someone they don't even know, let alone care about. How is that a sacrifice? There are some true human sacrifices going on today, though. Since 2018, in a small town of Fana, 10 people have been murdered in what are believed to be ritual killings. Their bodies were decapitated. The heads were left with the body, but the blood was taken. Like, why? Am I the only one who immediately thinks vampire? Or have I just seen too many movies? Let me know. Fana is just a small cotton and merchant town in South Mali. It's on the edge of a national road that goes between Ségou and the capital city of Bamako. Many don't even have water or electricity. There is jihadist violence in the north and center of the country, but they don't bother the people of Fana. That's still a little too close for me, but they seem fine. Or at least before this. They stay far away, so the murders in town more than likely have nothing to do with them. I bet there was some panic at first, though. So any body mutilation is going to spark rumors of ritual killings, but what supports this theory even more is that one of the victims was an albino girl. She was kidnapped by armed men, taken from her mother and sister. She was murdered and left near a mosque. Her head was missing. This is not the first time that it's happened. Apparently, this happens fairly often right before any election. People are taking the heads of albinos for ritual sacrifices. People with this skin condition are seen as an omen of misfortune, so they will oftentimes be abused and killed. Murders of albinos have multiplied in the last couple of years due to the value of their body parts. Just an arm is worth $2,000. The whole body, $75,000. They're so valuable because occult practices use their body parts in magic potions. Many African countries have this problem. Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, as well as in West Africa. But in Fana, all the body parts were left behind. Only the blood was gone. People have obviously been in a panic, wondering if they'll ever see their loved ones again after parting ways. People suspected everyone. One murder did leave a bit of a clue, though. There was an iron bar and a trail of blood leading away from the house to some motorcycle tire tracks. Investigators have looked into if and how victims may be connected or how similar they are. The only things similar are where they live and how they were murdered and found. The victims I could find are the albino girl and another child. They were 5 and 2. The others include a former soldier and a housewife. There is no further information I can find on the other victims. Since the murders went unsolved for 5 years, people of the community were outraged. They demanded authorities find whoever is behind this. But police had to remind the public they didn't have the same resources and technology like wealthier countries. It is unrealistic to expect the same turnaround time. In 2019, after the uproar, they did place the first police station in town. 11 men were detained, but the killing continued. A 42-year-old Malian man was arrested last year. He was suspected before, but there wasn't enough evidence. The magistrate said, the details he gave of the crime correspond to what happened. He has since confessed to the murders, but has not yet given a motive. There are no further details at this time. There are possibly ritualistic killings made to Santa Muerta in Mexico by cartel members. But there isn't enough on that yet, so if more information comes, I will bring it to the library. Though it is not likely people in the woods practice human sacrifice in modern times, I believe the possibility is kept alive by all the mysteries of remote places and people completely vanishing, never to be heard from again. There are many cases of people going missing in the woods, but most are found. Dead or alive, they are found. But there are some who seem to have literally disappeared. Where are they? No one who normally keeps track of missing people records how many of those are close to national parks and other wilderness areas. But you know who does? Bigfoot hunters. David Paulides, founder of the North American Bigfoot Search, created a database that says there are at least 1,600 people missing in the wild. And that was in 2011. Probably the most well-known case is Denis Martin. Now y'all know I love Appalachia and the Smoky Mountains, so any chance to talk about it is one I'll take. 6-year-old Denis went missing while on a Father's Day trip with his dad, grandfather, and brother to the national park back in 1969. They hiked from Cades Cove to Spence Field near the Appalachian Trail. They hung out with another family also camping at Spence Field. All the children were playing hide and seek, and then they decided to surprise the adults. So everyone jumped out and returned to camp. Except Denis. His father panicked, running down the trail to find him. After a few hours of searching, he went for help. The National Park Service came to form a search party. But the location and the weather were not on their side. There are many steep slopes and ravines that if you've ever stood near one, you know one wrong step and you're done. The mountains are beautiful, but unforgiving. Just a short time after he was missing, it started to rain. Downpour, really. It rained 3 inches in a couple of hours, washing out trails and flooding streams. If he was anywhere near the water, those rock-filled rivers became rapids in a second. Separate search teams were brought in from the National Guard and the Green Berets. Hundreds of rescue crews, hikers clubs, Boy Scouts, sheriff's offices, firefighters, and community members showed up to help. The Red Cross provided food. Helicopters and canine units were deployed to search. 1,400 volunteers. To this day, it was the largest national park search of all time, which later they regretted. It was too many people searching, contaminating possible evidence. This caused the National Park Service to revise its policies for search and rescue missions. Child-sized footprints, thought to be Denis's, were found leading to a stream but disappeared on the other side. Unfortunately, Denis was never found. Anytime there are more questions than answers, conspiracy theories pop up. The biggest one sort of ties into the theme of the movie, closer to my wrong turn comparison. The theory is that Denis was abducted by a feral person living in the woods. It's believed there are people who went off-grid years ago and were away from civilization for so long they became animalistic in nature, kind of like a Tarzan character. What fueled this theory is another camper's account of events that night. He was about 5 miles from where the Martins were camping. About an hour after Denis was missing, Harold Key and his family heard an enormous, sickening scream. In the woods, that is terrifying. A little while later, he saw an unkempt, shaggy, rough-looking man running up the trail near where the scream had come from. Park rangers and the FBI discounted this being related since it was more like 7 or 9 miles away by trail. If feral people are real, they could get around faster than normal people. So it's possible if they're real. But there is no real evidence that they exist. But they do. To this day, no one knows what happened to Denis Martin, but hopefully one day we will. Again, hidden people in the backcountry sacrificing people who get lost in the woods makes a great horror movie plot, but from what I can find, it doesn't happen in real life. But anyone who has been to a national park or even seen a map knows how vast the wilderness is. People could vanish for sure. And I know most of us stay on the marked trails, so we would never come across someone in the backcountry. But if we did, who would know? Who would find us? How would anyone know the truth? That we might be hung up on a tree, sacrificed to some pagan god? No one would know. Well, that's it for the dark and chilling tale of the ancient and modern ritualistic killings and Denis Martin, the missing boy of Smoky Mountain National Park. Alright, it's time for our final fright. Being part of a ritual may be one of the scariest things in the woods, but not the weirdest. It's debatable, but it might be coming across a bear in the woods, hyped on cocaine. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the story of the cocaine bear. Pablo Escobar was just walking along in the Tennessee woods when she came across some containers that she probably thought were food. Since she ended up in Georgia, I'm assuming it was the Smokies. Lots of tourists who love to leave food and feed the bears, no matter how many of us park Karens yell at them. Yes, I'll Karen out to save the bears. Kiss it. A former narcotics officer turned trafficker dumped the cocaine into the woods to drop weight from the plane. Georgia Bureau of Investigation found the bear deceased from a drug overdose. That's not the weirdest part to me, though. She was then taxidermied and donated to Chattahoochee River National Recreation Area. But she disappeared. How does one sneak out with a life-size stuffed bear? It was then found at a pawn shop. Oh, to be that shop owner. Do you even ask? Now, she's on display in a mall in Lexington, Kentucky. A mall. Thank you for joining me here at the Midnight Library at Dark Academy. I hope you enjoyed this dark and chilling tale, and we'll come back next time for another one. Next time we'll discuss the original Black Christmas from 1974. Don't forget to leave a review for this episode in the comments section below. If you'd like to review the whole show, you can do that on Apple Podcasts. You can rate the show on any of the apps, and please do. It really helps. You can also email me at darkacademypod@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll meet you here next time. Same time, same place. For it's always midnight in the Dark Academy Library. Bye!